Welcome everybody to another episode of Fantasy News. I am your disheveled goblin host Daniel Greene, and today there's a roller coaster of up, down, left, right, and loop-de-loop to get through fantasy news. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump on into it. Starting with the fact that finally, Simon & Schuster has officially been sold by Paramount and purchased by a private equity firm called KKR for $1.62 billion. You may recall that earlier this year in the summer, Penguin Random House also attempted to purchase Simon & Schuster, but that was blocked by a federal judge trying to keep the Big Five still the Big Five. With this purchase, there's still going to be 5 different companies competing with each other and not reduced down to the Big Four. I've seen some people still acting like it's as bad as this being reduced down to the Big Four, which is just not the case, and I'm actually of the opinion that even referring to them as the Big Five is not entirely true anymore due to how Amazon has stepped into space. I would have previously agreed with this sentiment that the Big Five are too big to fail, but there's a lot of strange stuff happening in the publishing space, and the Big Five in some substantial ways are losing power. Example, are having to compete with Amazon in indirect ways that I don't think they predicted. And there are people who through indirect routes are stepping into their money stream and siphoning off fairly large portions of revenue they previously got to just rely on by default. But I would think it's foolish to not in some ways start to think of it as the Big Six. Because Amazon, as we've seen with its chokehold on audiobook publishing and now them stepping into trad publishing or physical publishing as well, if you had said that Amazon was going to have the level of power they have now in publishing 5 years ago, people would have said you were insane. So I'm just not trying to underestimate how much greater Amazon's control in publishing could get 5 years from now. Now, Simon & Schuster is within months of its centennial. It's going to have been around for 100 years in 2024. And I know it's easy to come across like I'm anti these giant publishers, but no, they do a lot of good. I just wish they would be more competitive in certain ways with other companies that are gobbling up more and more of the space, a la Amazon. And of this whole story, the most interesting angle to it to me is still having Stephen King, who is published by Simon & Schuster, showing up and testifying against their merger back when Penguin Random House was trying to buy them earlier in the summer. That was a baller move. We're actually going to have 3 different Stephen King related stories today, though I've broken them up due to topic sense. So for now, let's go ahead and get into the Witcher news, which is finally not about the show and instead is about the author confirming that for the first time in 10 years, he is going to be publishing a new Witcher book, saying, "I never say these things because with me, you never know. Maybe I'll do something, maybe I won't. And so far, when I said that I would write something and then don't write it, people complain as if I have deceived them, as if I had lied. That's why I don't like to talk about what I'm doing until I finish doing it, because until I finish, I don't think it exists. But since I always make exceptions for Ukrainians, I will do it this time too. Yes, I'm working on a new book about Witcher, and quite diligently. It may take a year, but no longer." So we have no news of when this book might take place within the chronology of the Witcher series, but fans of the Witcher series are used to stories being told essentially out of order. My personal preference, though, would be for the more short story collection we've gotten for The Witcher before. That's prime Witcher for me. But moving from one piece of good news for the Witcher fandom to the good Omens fandom, Neil Gaiman has confirmed that he will write a novel for Season 3 if Amazon doesn't pick it up. Season 2 is out now and being received quite well by the good Omens fans. The most interesting angle of this for me, though, is the idea of finishing it in a book maybe being more tempting for some fans than the show. I think the show is great, don't get me wrong, but it's funny to be like, oh, we could get another book if we don't get Season 3. Maybe I prefer the book. I'm not saying one way or the other. I can enjoy both mediums, absolutely. But if we get Season 3, that means we don't get a book from Neil Gaiman. That's still a cost. That's a cost to be had. I think I'd prefer the show. I'd prefer both. But before we get into a controversial piece of Wheel of Time news, a quick word from today's sponsor. It's finally here. The coziest book of the year has had an upgrade, and you won't want to miss out. That's right, this is your chance to get a deluxe edition of the fantasy hit Legends and Lattes. New York Times bestselling author Travis Baldree has partnered up with Wraithmarked Creative, my publisher, and they've pulled out all the stops yet again. This deluxe edition features a custom dust jacket with original art in addition to gold gilded pages and a cloth-bound case. The inside is just as stunning, with custom interior designs by STK Creations, a ribbon bookmark, and spectacular colored in sheets, as well as cute illustrations of scenes and characters by Justin Gerard. They've already reached the 150k stretch goal mark, meaning there are only 2 more tiers left to go. Even better, pledging on Kickstarter gets you a $10 discount on the retail price of the book, so grab it while you can. So what's standing in your way? Head on over to Kickstarter for Wraithmarked Creative's deluxe edition of Legends and Lattes and snag your copy before it's gone. I know I'm getting mine! It has been unearthed that apparently Barney Harris, the original actor who played Matt, has filed legal complaints online due to certain websites posting that apparently he didn't return to season 1 due to being unwilling to get the COVID vaccine, which I cannot stress enough is absolutely factually incorrect, because when they resumed filming, there was no vaccine available. That is purely not true. Everything we have seen from Barney Harris about why he did not return to the show is involving personal affairs. Things that are nobody's business, no matter how big of a fan you are. You can be disappointed Barney Harris is not going to show up for our make-believe fun time show, but when it comes to real-world issues, that gives no one the right to pry into this man's life or just make up baseless speculation online. And if someone is going through personal crises, creating these online rumors can make an already bad situation significantly worse for them. Individuals, no matter how famous or high profile, are allowed to step away from projects when it comes to mental health or personal family concerns. End of story. But let's step away from that rather piece of heavier news and instead get into a fun cover reveal from Orbit Books for Song of the Huntress by Lucy Holland. Song of the Huntress transforms the story of Herla and the Wild Hunt into a rich feminist fantasy of 2 great warriors, a war-torn land, and an ancient magic that is slowly awakening. Pick up a copy winter of 2024. And Orbit, you credited the cover artist. Good job. Now for this next story, we fortunately have a beginning, middle, and end to how this whole process was going to be handled, but it was handled terribly at first and falls into basically an author's worst nightmare. Author Jane Friedman noticed on Amazon and Goodreads several books attributed to her name that she had not written and seemed to be just posted by scammers, likely using AI to just fill these books with gobbledygook that might sound like it's coming from the author, to use their name to try and make money. This is just straight up scamming on Amazon and Goodreads. And for those of you unaware, you cannot control what books are attributed to your name on Goodreads. I have a book that I have not written and just threw out a possible title for on my Twitter attributed to my name on my Goodreads with reviews on it. I did not write this. It's just a possible name. There's a long history of me having issues with Goodreads on this channel, and there's a reason the only time I log into my Goodreads is to do the book promotional stuff all authors have to do when they have a release. The insane part of this, though, is when Jane Friedman first made Amazon aware of this issue, they refused to take down the titles, claiming she had no trademark of her name. And it wasn't until it seems that major players like an authors guild stepped in to argue on her behalf that the titles finally got removed. But this is a growing problem. There are scammers out there who are learning they can use authors' names to try and make a quick buck. There seems to be no tools in place to stop this from happening on a mass scale, and it might fall on the shoulders of authors large and small to take up these fights on their own, which is insane. I cannot believe this is what I have to say at the conclusion of this story, but for you all, the takeaway should be, if you see a new book attributed to an author you like on Amazon, Goodreads, or possibly other major platforms, check to make sure it was actually written by them first, because that's no longer guaranteed, and you might find yourself reading AI-generated trash by a scammer. Ugh. All right, let's move into some more happier, positive news. And once again, this is Stephen King related, because Mike Flanagan has confirmed that yes, right now there's not a lot of progress going towards a new Dark Tower adaptation because of the ongoing writer's strike. He then, of course, though, vocalized his support of the writer's strike. It was not in any way, shape, or form trying to frame this as a way of like, oh, the strike should end. No. But once the strike is over, he's saying that things are aligning to look like this project might be a go. As the Dark Tower fan, yay! Not only for Mike Flanagan making momentum on this, but of course take the time to vocally support the WGA and SAG, which transitions us very nicely into our next story, and one that actually involves Disney I'm happy to cover, because visual effects crews at Marvel Studios have filed for a unionization election with the National Labor Relations Board. This signals a major shift in the VFX industry, which has been largely non-union since the 70s. For those unaware, a lot of the same issues we have seen for writers and actors being underpaid absolutely applies to VFX artists. And if they are able to unionize and therefore get the cost of their labor where it needs to be for it to be fair, it could actually give greater leverage as well to the WGA and SAG. Workers across the board coming together to take back power for those up top who are being greedy and will not pay them, when studios like A24 have already agreed to the demands because they can absolutely afford it even though they're way smaller. This is just a good thing across the board. And it actually gives me a lot of hope for the future for the working class of America seeing this movement take off, and I hope hits more sectors. Now I have to come up with a good transition here. Speaking of dystopian type environments and dreaded future paths, the merch for Neon Ghosts: A Witch's Sin, a dystopian cyberpunk book I wrote, is available right now, as you can see linked below this video. If you want to get a Ghosties hat or a Taya Cybernetics tee made out of very cozy jersey material, go ahead and check out danielbgreene.com, and patrons, of course, get an additional 10% off. And there's the detail of we put wear, which is the cybernetic implants from my world, all over this shirt, so I use it at the gym and I pretend I have wear implants and I lift more weights, and then I'm very sore. But let's go ahead and transition into the exciting Brando Smando news, because we've had it confirmed that there is a deck building Stormlight Archive game in the works from Brotherwise Games, who are also developing, apparently, a Stormlight Archive tabletop RPG, the latter of which is expected to be released in 2024. And you may know Brotherwise Games for creating Boss Monster, Call to Adventure, Castle by the Sea, and Empire's End, as well as many, many more. This inevitably begs the question, which are you more excited for? For me personally, as someone who has just gotten into Magic the Gathering, that's kind of scratching the deck building game itch for me, so I'm more excited for the tabletop RPG, because with me being about to move, I really want to get a new D&D group together, and I feel like I could get a Stormlight group together real fast, and I'd want to stream it on Twitch or something? I don't know, it's making me feel like I could do something along those lines. Fun ideas. And Brandon partnering with Brotherwise Games just seems like a match made in heaven for an approach to these new games. Quick update to say that if you are interested in getting a sneak peek at the Fringe video I have been working on, the intro to it, that is over 17 minutes long, is currently available on my Patreon, as well as some vlogs that Kayla and I have been doing about our whole moving process. So if you want to check those out, of course, link to the Patreon down below. Final story we're going to be covering here today. Stephen King did a reading from his upcoming book, Holly. And Simon & Schuster posted this on their channel. And very quickly, you're going to notice something wrong.
See what they're doing, Holly in particular, but in this case, I want to read to you about Barbara Robinson.
Please tell me they properly mic'd him up and we're about to transition to an actually good mic while he reads from this.
Holly is smoking in the parking lot of the Sugar Heights Boutique shopping mart. Barbara Robinson is staring uselessly.
This is the best-selling author in American history, modern American history. And they didn't put a proper mic on him when having him read from his motherfucking book. This man has more adaptations. It's not King's fault. It's not Stephen King's fault. That's very important to remember. He is successful enough, he doesn't have to be working on this. It's whoever came to his home to help him shoot this fault. I got a mic right here, take it! But before we finish off the fantasy news here, you know I'm excited to bring it to you. We are going to once again get into the self-pub promo for goblins within the Horde here who have published their own fantastical books. If you would like to see your book promoted here on Fantasy News, just join the Discord server, go ahead and throw it in the self-pub channel, and we will be getting to as many as we can every single week. And if you're a reader who's interested in supporting self-pub authors, well, here's some great options. Millennium Exile by Ty Hansen. Millennium Exile is a fantasy/action anime light novel about Vincent Klein, a young man burdened by superhuman strength. Vincent imagines being a hero of justice, living in the lawless and poverty-stricken Ryuga ghetto. However, he is shunned by the public, who fears his tremendous abilities and considers him a monster. He dreams of leaving his everyday life in search of adventure. But when a mysterious stranger offers him a chance to do just that, Vincent is thrown into a world he never knew existed. A world of meisters, magic, and mythical creatures. Great use of alliteration there. Divine Invasion by Aaron Renfor. The gods gave him 6 months to prepare for their twisted games. What he does next will surprise them all. The magical world of Volar is dying. To save themselves and their followers, the native gods have instituted a plan, one that will transform Earth mortals into anchors for their powers. Ty and thousands of other humans are summoned through portals and given one mission: choose a god and power up as fast as they can. An isekai portal lit RPG series, The Divine Invasion is the first book in a fast-paced adventure story set in both our world and Volar. Expect demons, dragons, dungeons, and unexpected plot twists to take the story in new and strange directions at every turn. This is the first book in an expected 9-book series, of which the first 4 are already written and scheduled for this year. Dark Valkyrie, Beyond Ragnarok by Jeremiah Emerson Williams. To her village, Kit is known as an outrider, trained to brave the wastes of the new world, to facilitate trade, and to salvage abandoned places. To Vikings, she's known as the Dark Valkyrie, the vengeful spirit that hunts them. Today's task seems simple. Go to the Kirkson's trading post and trade for a water pump. But in the world beyond Ragnarok, nothing is so simple. Dark Valkyrie Beyond Ragnarok is a standalone post-apocalyptic novella that mashes Mad Max with Norse mythology and makes the badass silent protag a woman. I don't know why I did it in this voice, and I regret doing so. Truth of Crowns, Book 1, The Eternal Ash Series by Carl D. Albert. Secrets are fun. Secrets cut my tongue. In a land where magic is heresy, ancient forces manipulate human whims. Secrets will tear a fragile piece asunder. 4 people stand at the heart of this burgeoning war. An unproven prince who married a woman forbidden to him. A sickly boy with a connection to an eldritch beast. An outcast knight who hides the infidelity of her liege lady, and a traitorous duke caught between the contradictions of his ideals. 2 will die, 2 will rise, and the age of Turkey will march towards its end. Truth of Crowns is the tragic first installment in the Ash Eternal series, an epic fantasy rife with blood-soaked politics, arcane mysteries, and human heart at conflict with itself. The Garden Gnome, A Theory of Magic, Book 1 by Jeff McIntyre. Where did the magic go? Our world is defined by science, but history tells us that the world was once a much more magical place. Every culture has tales of when the gods walked among us, when strange magical creatures dwelt in the dark, and when users of magic were respected and feared. We tell ourselves these stories are myth and superstition, but what if they aren't? What if magic were to return? And what does it have to do with a 10-year-old boy and his imaginary friend? Daniel and Sophia Fitzroy are worried that their son, Tony, is being bullied in his new school and struggling to cope.
Leo Schaefer is reporting on a new and powerful particle accelerator experiment, and the protesters who wanted to stop. FBI Special Agent Deborah Kasdan is investigating the protests and trying to keep things from escalating. Brian Cook is being inducted into a secret society that knows the truth about
Magic and will stop at nothing to keep it from returning. They will be drawn together in an extraordinary
confrontation that will change the world forever and bathe you, the reader, in blood.
I added that last part myself. But this has just been your latest episode of Fantasy News. Like and subscribe if you have not already. Be sure to check out the Legends and Lattes Kickstarter. And if you would like some Neon Ghosts, a Witch's Sin merch, I will be sending a thank you to every single person, yes, all of you, who purchase merch on this drop. Have a good one, y'all. Love you, bye! And of course, I want to record a special shout out to my latest high tier Patreons, Rune, Casey Custer, William Roush, and Zach Grover. Thank you so much.